And Kurt is going to show, he's going to roll first, and that's really an important component of rolling, is to get you to this position, supine and elbows. Once you get supine and elbows, then there's a couple strategies you can use to come to sitting from there. But the first idea we're going to show is actually getting supine on elbows from this flat supine position. And one common way to do this is to utilize the roll first. So you would roll over, get prone on elbows, and then use a technique to come back and end up supine on elbows. So the first idea is, or the first challenge here is to roll. So if you'd roll over to your left. Good. And if you could actually get up and put weight on both your elbows. And this whole idea here takes a lot of work, takes a lot of strength that you can bear weight through both shoulders like this. And now what Kurt is going to do, he's going to bear all weight on his right shoulder and slowly bring his left arm around and touch down on his left shoulder. And if we could just repeat that again, I want you to really concentrate on his right glenohumeral joint. It really acts as a pivot point through all of this. Now slowly come around and touch down on the left. I want to repeat that again. And it's important when you learn these, when you work on these activities, to break up these activities in their fundamental components. If you have an hour-long therapy session, you know, set certain goals for yourself and just key it on certain components of this. And this component right here is trying to use the right glenohumeral joint as the pivot point and rotating your whole trunk around it. Now come back to me. And you can certainly resist this or assist this depending on what needs the person has. Okay, so now when we've accomplished the first important milestone to come to sitting is getting supine and elbows. He makes this look a lot easier than it really is when you first start. But at first, you have to learn to rock side by side. And this requires loose glenohumeral joints and enough control to hang over one shoulder and unload one shoulder. Right? So now, if I let go of him, he can have all his weight just on his left upper extremity. And once you learn this, then the idea is to throw this arm back as far as you can. Notice the range of motion that this takes as well. Also in the biceps, because it's stretched across both elbow and shoulder. Now you've got to bring your body weight over the right shoulder and momentarily hang on that position and throw your left arm back and then walk up from there. Now, this activity requires a lot of range of motion in the shoulders. The second activity, the second way to come to sitting, if you can go back to supine and elbows for me, please, is a little bit different. This method, Kurt's going to kind of do a semi-roll over to his right, pivoting on his right elbow and touching down with his left elbow. And he's just going to kind of walk around in a semicircle. The disadvantage of this technique, sometimes it puts a lot of wear and tear on the elbows. And when Kurt gets to about this position, the next idea is he's either going to use his elbow flexors or wrist extensors on his left, and he's going to extend this right elbow by using these more proximal musculature. Remember, he does not have any triceps here doing this. And this is an excellent example of using proximal musculature to extend this elbow joint as long as this distal segment is fixed. How about if we just reverse that, if you don't mind, go back to about right here. So notice that he's actually attacking this from bilaterally. He's using elbow flexors, right, to bring his trunk in this position because he's actually hooking his distal form against his relatively immobile right leg. But the key idea here is that he's able to extend this elbow. And he's really going to do it by strong contraction of his anterior deltoid and clavicular head of the pectoralis major. And why don't you kind of do that as slow motion as you can, but right here. Can you back that up just a little bit? Good. And then come in again, up. And this shows an excellent example here of the anterior deltoid controlling the flexion and extension of this joint. Eccentric activity flexes it. Concentric activity, the anterior deltoid extends it. And how about one more? And then come all the way up to sitting from there. Excellent. Good. Angela is going to show several ways that she's learned how to come up to sitting from lying down supine. Give us some perspective of how long this took you to learn this, or how valuable is it?
I would say this, again, took me between 3 and 4, maybe even 5 months. It's very valuable. It's an important step to being able to transfer independently And it's also important for being able to dress yourself. A lot of people, including myself, start with adaptive devices such as rails on hospital beds or bed loops. But as time goes on, you want to be able to do it just with no adaptive devices at all, because it's hard to have to depend on stuff.
And once you own it, then no one can take it from you, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, so I can go from laying to sitting, whether I'm in a bed with rails, whether I'm on the floor, whether I'm on a mat. So then it just doesn't matter anymore.
Can you go back and do that again and leave that right elbow all the way straight? Like all the way straight. Just throw it behind you like you did. But leave it all the way straight. Now hang over that shoulder. This is the way someone without triceps often would do this activity. But Angela has a triceps, so she doesn't really have to worry about staying in hyperextension, the elbows. Great. So that's one method that's often used. Another method, again, starts supine and requires a roll. In this case, you roll, and instead of getting prone on elbows and coming back on supine elbows, you tend to just kind of walk your elbows around and keep both elbows on one side of the body and kind of walk in a long arc to come to sitting. I think this can be best demonstrated by Angela. And again, it requires that initial roll, which rolling is a prerequisite to coming to sitting, and coming to sitting is a prerequisite for transferring. So this technique often works well when you don't have the range of motion needing in your shoulders, the hyperextension. It takes a little bit longer, and earlier on it can be rough on the elbows. And you can certainly notice that Angela has very, very loose hamstrings, which does not at all interfere with this activity. Good. Reach. Good. Okay. How about if we stop right about there? This is always a hard part, isn't it? Because you have all the weight on your left shoulder. And if we go back to the mat again, now lift up. This is really an abduction motion of the shoulder from here back against all the weight of our upper trunk, and lift up. So this activity itself is very, very important. So you can actually start an activity like this and break it up into its functional components. We need to bear weight over a stable shoulder, and we need to be able to abduct the shoulder against all body weight. How about pull down a little bit? You all right?
Yeah.
Come up. Okay, you hold there and don't let me pull you down. Hold. Don't let me push you. Hold. Okay. Now, again, hold your trunk real stable. Hold. Hold. I'm trying to establish stability about this glenohumeral joint. Okay, how about if we keep going now like you're going to sit up? Good. Good. And how about right from there, if you would just kind of come back, and let's just back up with that task. Just kind of put both elbows onto the mat and kind of walk backwards, just kind of reverse time with that activity. It's kind of like walking on elbows. That's it. Good. And now let's go to your right again. Kind of unload one and load the other. Good. And let's go back. That's it. Beautiful. Okay, and why don't you kind of take it from here? Good. How about this last little part of that maneuver? You do a really good job with that. How about if we bend again? Okay, this idea of getting this maneuver right here is driven really by triceps, but at first that can be weak, and this activity can be actually performed even without triceps as long as you have a well-developed anterior deltoid. But good. And kind of lead with your chin as you're looking to your right. That's it. I'm going to give you some resistance here. I'm going to come up, push. Okay, and bring your chest all the way around to the left. That's it, good. Now kind of push up and relax, back, push up and relax.